There is not a single thing healthy about being a bodybuilder. Talk to anybody who has competed in the past and ask them, is bodybuilding healthy for you? If they say yes, they are lying to you, or they are trying to sell you something to get you to compete again. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Jacque Show. So today we're going to talk about, is bodybuilding healthy for you? Short and sweet of it. Should I make you wait for it? No, I'm not going to make you wait for it. It is insanely unhealthy for you. And people out there are going to maybe potentially be outraged by this. But I think if you are, then you're just choosing to ignore the blatantly obvious facts, right? So people are like, oh my gosh, I want to go into bodybuilding. I want to go into physique. I want to go into bikini or figure. I want to do these things, right? I want to do it just because of the personal challenge. I want to do it because I want to conquer this. I want to do it because of this. The biggest thing, whenever it comes to bodybuilding, I know that we usually talk about gut health, fertility, and we talk about mold toxicity, but these kind of all wrap up together in this. So the short and sweet of it, before we really dive into the science of it, is, bodybuilding is horrible for you. And bodybuilding includes physique, bikini, any category class of bodybuilding in the realm of NPC or whatever division that you're in. It is not healthy and it is not sustainable for the body. Now, those of you who know me know that I've done bodybuilding competitions, and that was when I was sicker than I had ever been in my life. I would rather have been on my deathbed again in 2009 in the hospital, living off a morphine drip after being jumped, than suffer through what I went through post-competing. Okay? I would rather be on my deathbed than choose to compete again. Now, it's not to say I don't take care of myself. Obviously, I do. Obviously, I work out. I eat clean. I do things that are pieces of bodybuilding without the excessiveness, right? They'll say, oh, everything in moderation. Well, bodybuilding, there's nothing in moderation. Either you show up your best or you show up your worst, or you show up your best and you think it's your worst. So let's talk about that one. First and foremost, when you do these things, and I got crap for this on TikTok for unpopular belief, but you got to do it for yourself, right? When you get into the sport, you have to do it for you. What do you want to get into it for? Do you want to do it because you want to get first place? What does first place mean? You beat out all the other competitors? Congratulations. If you go into the NPC, you're never going to get first place on your first try because, quite honestly, the majority of the competitors are sleeping with the judges. It's not unknown. It's barely common. Or your opposing coach knows the judges, and so they'll put a good word in for you so that way they'll pay attention to you. So then when you go on to stage, even if you have the most pristine, perfect physique ever imaginable, your makeup looks great, or your tan looks great, and your muscles are popping at just the right degree, and then you get 100th. Okay, if you go to some of these big shows, you're like, you placed 100, or you placed 75. What does that then do to your confidence? That makes you think that you look terrible, especially when you're dieted down like that. You're a lot more emotional, men and women. And so you're like, oh man, I guess I didn't show up good enough. Maybe I should compete again, and maybe I should try to bring a better package to the stage. Maybe I should spend all this money. And again, competing fees. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. Yeah, the competing fees, the tags, the pins and all that stuff, the tanning, the supplements you have to take to get there. And you're like, yeah, maybe I'll do it again. Maybe I'll do it again. And then it starts to turn into this perpetuating cycle of body dysmorphia. Right? Because when you compete, you're already a little bit twisted in the head. Look at the majority of pro bodybuilders out there are shorter guys. It's true. I'm going to say this and people might get upset again, but they're shorter guys. So the majority of them have that Napoleon complex where they want to overcompensate by being just absolutely massive. So therefore, they already have body dysmorphia going into the sport, and they lay more body dysmorphia on top of it because they want to be the biggest of that category out there, right? That's why bodybuilding goes based off of weight instead of by the actual body. It goes by weight instead of height. You go height, then you go classic physique and all of those other things. There's different categories for it. but it's not healthy for you. So from the mental component, it is incredibly unhealthy for you. You're constantly hating on your body. You're constantly assessing your body. I'm too fat. I shouldn't eat that food because I bloat. I've got this, or I need to eat 6 meals because my coach tells me I need to eat 6 meals. And that leads into part 2. You absolutely destroy your gut in bodybuilding, in competing. You destroy it. Why? The amount of stress that you put your body under, your body is incapable of taking a break. You're putting your body into stress. You're going into that sympathetic dominance, which we've talked about before. And what's that doing to your gut? You're continuously breaking down your intestinal tract lining to release amino acids. You're eating your muscle tissue. You're not recovering fast. So then your coach, or maybe you Google, like, oh man, I need this. And this is going to help me to keep my workouts on, right? So then you go and you grab some intra-workout carbs like waxy maize starch, which is just shitty carbs to try to fill up your muscle glycogen while you're training, right? So that way you can last longer, so that way you can have more of the pump or whatever carried afterwards, right? So you're putting crap in your body. You're eating the same thing pretty much every single day, right? I've been out of the sport for a long time, but I can tell you bulk mode is going to be more of your red meats. When you go into like, okay, I'm thinking about getting there, then you go into your white meats, your chickens, things like that, maybe a little fish thrown in there. And then when you go into diet mode, well, you're basically just eating white fish. Okay. A lot of the times coaches will tell you crush tilapia, which is one of the worst fish that you can have that's out there. So eating the same thing consistently time and time again is then going to lead into those conditions we talk about with food sensitivities or food allergies, right? Because if we keep eating the same thing, our digestive tract isn't functioning properly. So we're not able to break down the foods and the proteins we're eating to begin with. We bloat. We're not giving our body a chance to rest. We're carrying that then into nighttime. Our sleep's going to be off. Then it's going to lead into insulin resistance because we're going to be overworked, overtired, and unrested. Insulin resistance is going to make you very, very, very sensitive to any sugar that you take in at all. Brings me to my next point. Most people track their sugar intake. So when you're competing, most people are coached to go sugar-free, which is like my least favorite thing to ever see on an ingredients label. Anytime something says sugar-free, you might as well just say throw it in the trash. Why it's still legal in America to have half this stuff that's out there with these artificial things and stuff that's all packed in there. Walden Farms is one of them, with that sucralose and a fake shit that's out there. And then it goes through, I believe it's 24 days of consistent use of sucralose decreases your probiotic population by at least 50%. Sucralose can also mimic MS type symptoms. So sometimes people get like numbness and tingling in their hands after they consume one of these beverages, and they're like, oh my gosh, I think I have a neurological issue. Well, technically, you're putting a neurological neurotoxin, so something that's toxic to the nervous system in, and that's why you're getting the symptoms that you're getting, right? So we're eating way too much food, way too many calories, putting way too much stress on your body, and then you're throwing in the sugar-free crap on top of it, right? Then you're training, right? You're training 2 hours a day. In the gym, you're training, and then you're like, well, now I have to do 2-a-days, right? So what does that do to you? Your body is going through 2 catabolic phases during the day where you're increasing your cortisol, destroying your body, and then trying to replenish what you just destroyed by the food that you're consuming. And again, the same food every single day, leading to the same food sensitivities that you're going to have coming into contest time. And then you go on the stage and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm eating these things and I feel bloated, I feel horrible, I feel disgusting. What happened? Well, you ate the same thing for 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 18 weeks, however long your diet is. And now your body has a sensitivity to it. Congratulations. Your body cannot digest that food anymore. And then some coaches will pump you full of diuretics to try to drain you out. And they're like, good luck on stage. We'll see you afterwards. Right? And then you'll see people with, donuts and cookies and pizzas and all that stuff afterwards. What about pancake challenges? Halfway through or as you're dining in there and your coach is like, hey, we need to crush some goals here. We need to replenish your muscle glycogen. So we're going to do a pancake challenge. Go and eat as many syrupy pancakes as possible. Syrup right on top. And if I remember correctly, no butter. Just do that as best you can. I remember this, right? And again, this is what you accept as truth typically in the sport. There's only a few bodybuilders that I know who are smart whenever it comes to their diet and what they do and talk about like colonics and stuff. But there's like a super special niche of those ones. So you go in, and I remember Megan and I went to, I think it was IHOP, I guess it would be IHOP. And it was right after training session. I just did legs. I remember being on the calf press. It wasn't a calf raise, just like the seated calf press machine. And I'm doing that, and Megan's doing a video of me, and she's like, "Well, you ready?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm ready for these pancakes. Let's get these pancakes in." And so I ate as many pancakes as humanly possible. The people at IHOP were like, "What the hell is wrong with this guy? Why is he trying to eat so much?" Well, if you take advantage of it, if your insulin works properly, your insulin is going to shuttle all that sugar into your muscles so you feel more full the next day, and you carry that over. It's like a little spillover effect. Is that healthy for you? Absolutely not. Not in the slightest bit should somebody be eating the amount of pancakes that I consumed that night. I had to have Megan drive me home because I couldn't see after I ate that many carbs, right? And this wasn't all that long ago. This is when I was competing down in Houston. We've known each other, Megan and I, we've known each other for 8 years. So this may be 6-7 years ago when we did this. Right? So from a dietary standpoint, there is not a single thing healthy about being a bodybuilder. Talk to anybody who has competed in the past and ask them, is bodybuilding healthy for you? If they say yes, they are lying to you, or they are trying to sell you something to get you to compete again. Now, I still know competitors, don't get me wrong, but you have to know what you're signing up for. You can't come to me and say, "Hey, I want to be super healthy. I'm going to super healthy school." And this is a little bit specific, but I'm going to a school to be super healthy, and I think that I should do a show. And I'm like, no, like it's just an oxymoron, right? It's like, I want to be healthy and I want to do a show. That doesn't, they don't align. They don't correspond. You don't understand the words that are coming out of your mouth. That's like saying, "I don't want my car painted red," as you're hosing your car down with red paint. Like, I don't want my car to be red. Well, you're doing it. I want to paint my car red, but I don't want it to be red. Huh? What are you talking about? It's unhealthy. It is very, very, very unhealthy. So the stress that people put on themselves, especially with the body dysmorphia side of things, and the women especially, right? Women with your hormones, you're so impressionable during competitions. You're usually going carb restricted for a long period of time. Your thyroid starts to suffer from the lack of carbohydrates, but also from the increased amount of stress. We talked about the HPA axis and the link to the HPT axis. So that chronic stress is slowly going to be throwing down or slowing down your thyroid. So if you already have a slow thyroid, and then you're like, "I want to do a competition so that way I can trim this fat down," you will make your thyroid worse. You will require, quote unquote, a larger dose of your current medication because you're going to be shutting down the proper signaling coming from your brain down to your thyroid gland. Okay, it's simple as that. So that's just from the thyroid standpoint. Okay, then we talk about getting your body fat down so low that now you have amenorrhea, where you are stopping ovulation, you're stopping your cycle from taking place. That is not a healthy thing for any woman to go through, whether you're competing or not. It's a sign of hormonal dysfunction. We need to keep that cyclical cycle so that way we have proper ovulation, proper spiking of the progesterone and estrogens the way they're supposed to, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulating hormone, so that way we can kind of coast into having a normal, healthy cycle every single month. If you're dieting down and you throw off your cycle, if you're dieting down and you throw off your thyroid, what happens is then women start to put on excess weight, which means as they are dieting down for their show, they get puffier, they're tired, they can't move, they have no motivation, they're cranky, they're irritable, and they're like, "Oh, I have to work harder." Or your coach will say, "You need to do more cardio, increase your cardio, go on the stepper, do more in the gym," right? Because they have to try to figure out how to compensate for that inflammatory catabolic physiology that you're creating in their body. Workouts by itself or by themselves create inflammation, okay? Pushes us away from homeostasis. It causes inflammation in our body. Then our body has to say, "Oh, shoot, shifted too far to the left. I need to bring it back right. So that way we can get right in center again. So we can be in that healthy, happy spot, which is homeostasis. Okay. So if we're going through and we have that stress and then you're worried about being healthy going into a show, bodybuilding for guys and competing for guys, it's a lot less detrimental to our health. We can bounce back pretty quickly, and not a lot of guys really give a crap about what other guys or judges or whatever say about our physiques. Now, if we got into it and it was like, hey, I already had body dysmorphia, and for those of you who don't know what body dysmorphia it is, it's one of those things where you look at yourself in a mirror and you can be absolutely pristine, look beautiful, everything, and you're still like, I'm too fat. I've got this here. I've got some here. My arms are too small. And you're like 500 pounds of solid muscle. You're like, I'm just so small. My legs are so small. It's body dysmorphia. You look at yourself a different way than what you actually look like, which can be a motivating factor in the gym. Don't get me wrong. I had body dysmorphia for the longest time, and I'll still go through basketball and like, Megan, I think I want to be bigger. And she's like, well, you just wanted to be leaner last week. I'm like, yeah, but I want to be like both. I want to go both ways on this. So thanks competing. Well, there's other psychological stuff with that as well, but guys can usually bounce back a lot quicker than women can. Their bodies are a little bit more resilient. We have testosterone as a primary sex hormone, so we're able to rebuild and repair because we're used to being more anabolic. Okay. For women, if we throw things down and we shut the cycle down, well, guess what? Your progesterone tanks down, your estrogen stays normal or it goes up. You're now estrogen dominant, which can put you at risk for other type of health conditions. Again, talked about the painful period, PMSing, but then you can also bloat and you can have excess fat on your body due to that depletion of your progesterone. So then questions that I get is, how can I compete naturally and support my body to make sure that I'm okay? I don't condone this activity. That's like, oh my God, how many times can I probably upset people? That's like saying, I want to beat cancer. I want to chug some chemo real quick, but I want you to do some things to make sure that the chemo doesn't kill me. Chemo is designed to do that. What do you want from me? Yeah, I can support you, sure. But there's other ways about this. There's other ways to go about this. You don't have to poison yourself back to health. That doesn't make any sense. So same thing when it comes to competing. There are various factors you could do. You can test properly, okay? And then when we talk about stress response, a lot of people have low-lying mold toxicity in their bodies. They don't know it, okay? A lot of us. Remember, over 50% of buildings nowadays are water damaged. So at some point in our lives, we were probably in a building that was water damaged, whether it was an apartment in college, maybe it was a frat house in college. I know that the house I stayed in, no, I didn't belong to a frat, but I lived in one. It was called a mud house. That place was disgusting. So it could have gotten some from there, from different office spaces, from schools, from nurseries, you name it. We've come across mold. If it's flying subclinical and it's not giving you symptoms currently, it can take a stressful event to then allow those mycotoxins to express themselves. This is why a lot of pregnant women, when they give birth, all of a sudden, boom, they're like, oh, I feel terrible. My gut's a mess. I have postpartum blues. I don't know what the heck is going on. And now I gain a whole bunch of weight and I feel horrible, blah, 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 blah. I've got rashes. My kid has colic. I don't know what to do. Well, it could be the fact that you unlocked your hidden mold. Now, when we compete, we can do the same thing because that competition, the mental stress matched with the physical stress, can also be a key component that if you do have mold toxicity, boom, it's going to unlock it. It's going to make it express itself. And again, with mold, we talked about estrogen going on the rise, but there are a lot of molds that will actually push an increase in estrogenic compounds, so more estrogen. There are some that also decrease your immune system. So stress already depletes your immune system or decreases it, and then mold is going to decrease it some more. So you're going to be more susceptible to things that occur. It's not uncommon for a lot of women as well as men, okay, both men and women, to compete and develop urinary tract infections or recurring candida or yeast infections. And they're like, what the hell is going on? Well, you're decreasing your good bacteria because you keep feeding yourself horrible food, a lot of sucralose-laden, sugar-free stuff. Then that stress response is going to decrease your good bacteria, and then it's going to be allowing for the bad guys to overgrow. And if you don't do things properly, you can be feeding that candida very, very, very easily. Okay. Because one of the main staples in bodybuilding diet is like white rice. Well, rice breaks down into sugar very, very quickly, very high in glycemic index. Does it help to fuel you up? Sure. But it's going to also feed yeast. So we'll have issues with candida from there. Mold can also trigger candida to grow. So it's like this giant circus of chaos in your body as you're dieting down to compete. So if someone is like, well, what do I do then? I still want to do it. I know all the negatives and I know that it's not healthy, but I still want to do it, but I want to do it the healthiest way possible. What can I do? Number one thing, stay away from the anabolics. Stay away from the diuretics. Stay away from those performance enhancing drugs. Stay away from fat burners. Stay away from caffeine as best you can. Stay away from caffeine, because when you are cutting your calories down, calories are energy, less calories, less energy, more stress that you're under, you're going to be burning more of those calories. So you're not going to have any of your trace minerals. So make sure you're taking a super solid multivitamin with a good omega-3 fish oil. So that way you're reducing the inflammation that you're causing from your workouts every single day. Other things, stay away from dairy, stay away from cow's milk, stay away from whey protein, stay away from that stuff as it is massively inflammatory to the body. The other thing we talked about earlier is stay away from sucralose, stay away from the sugar-free stuff. Even if your coach is like, it has to be sugar-free, then your coach doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. Just like the coaches that will say, you need to drink Diet Coke because Diet Coke is better for you. And you're like, no, because I could pour this on a rusty battery terminal and I'll pull all the rust off. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. So it's another thing to know. So stay away from the sucralose, stay away from the pops and sodas and all of that stuff. And then make sure that your gut is like pristine, and make sure your hormones and thyroid are like stellar. If you're able to do that, you can at least get a baseline down for what you're working with, right? It's like taking your car and your lights are going off in your car, and then you're like, I don't know what the heck is wrong with this thing. So you take it in to get an evaluation done, as long as you don't go to Land Rover North Scottsdale, because they are terrible with their service department. But you go in, you get your diagnostics done. They're like, okay, hey, you've got this, that, and the other thing that need to be fixed in order for this to run like perfectly. I'm like, okay, cool. Thanks for the diagnostics. Let's do this. Let's go forward with it. Okay. So then you can rebuild your body, and say you're like, oh, I want to compete in 2 months. Like, you're not ready. We need to work on this, that, and the other thing to make sure that if you do compete, that your body doesn't completely fall apart in the process, right? There is no cheap way to compete. There is definitely no cheap way to compete healthy, because you have to really be mindful of what you're putting in your body at a proper rate and a proper dose, and monitor your vitals basically the entire time. It would be exhausting. Going back now, if I went to compete again and I wanted to compete, because right now I sit at about 210, 208, 210 or so. I don't know what my body fat is. I can see my abs like every other day, depending on what I ate the day before. So I could probably compete again if I wanted to really go crazy in 8 weeks. I could probably step on the stage and look decent. I'll probably not do like all that well, but I could be dieted down to a very low percentage of body fat, right? If we're trying to do this from a rush standpoint, or we're like, hey, I want to do this healthy, and you're like, I want to do it in 2 months, there's no way in hell you're going to be ready in 2 months to do it. Maybe start approaching your body in a way that you love your body, have some self-love. Don't worry about other people's judgment of what your physique looks like, and remember to do it for yourself. Even if we bring the best package in the world, we're lobbing ourselves up for criticism, whether it's on social media, on like on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, or you're on stage and you get rated on how great your physique is or how horrible your physique is. And a lot of the times you get rushed off stage and you don't even get your moment to shine, because there's too many competitors that are running through, and you're on stage for 15 seconds and you're off. Right? So then what did you even compete for? A couple pictures and things like that. And then a lot of people will screw up afterwards, and they don't know what a reverse diet is. So they'll go and they'll splurge on all those horrible foods. I've done this, and I've put on 40 pounds in 3 days, 30 pounds in 3 days. Put on a lot of weight. My first show, I weighed 170 some pounds, and I had, I think, like negative 10% body fat. It was insane. Like, if you go, it's probably still on my Instagram, but if you go through there, I was so dark. My body just fully absorbed the tanner, which is toxic, by the way, absorbed that stuff in. And I stepped on stage about 170 pounds. And then I was like, I'm just going to eat Little Caesar pizza, McDonald's, and just boom, 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 just pounding all this stuff back. Put on like 30 pounds in 2 days and just felt like I was throwing up. Like I would cough and I would have food come up out of my mouth. That's how a lot of people will compete and how they'll uncompete, how they'll be after they're done. If you don't do a proper reverse diet, you can completely shut down your metabolism, cause a whole bunch of hormonal imbalances. Again, weight gain, fatigue. If you've starved yourself for so long, your body goes into like this primitive mindset that it's afraid you're going to starve it again. So if you eat a whole bunch of crappy inflammatory food, your body's going to stockpile fat on you. So you may look good for the week of your show, and then a couple days after, and then boom, you turn into the Stay Puft Marshmallow, and you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't been the same since I competed. Well, you screwed everything up. You stressed yourself up, then you overfed yourself, and your body's like, I don't know what you want me to do. So bodybuilding, don't do it. Don't do it without knowing the risks associated with it. Do your research, talk to people who are in the industry. That's why people don't do it for very long. And I know that some people are like, oh, it's just the steroid side of things. Well, you get all of these things, right? Say that you're competing and you're like, all right, I'm going to go fully natural on this. And then you go for a show and you're like, boom, I didn't place well. Like, well, shoot, I'm going to try it again. Boom, you don't place well again. And then you talk to somebody behind stage and you're like, oh yeah, well, I did a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And you're like, well, maybe I should do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Because that body dysmorphia sets in. You're like, okay, well, I need to find a supplier for that, which is probably a lot easier now than it was back in the day. But I need to find a supplier. Now I need to become anabolic. And now I need these diuretics. And now I need this, what the heck is it? Clenbuterol. I need like this stuff that can freaking kill you. I need some Clenbuterol right now. So that way I can lose a bunch of fat super quick. So you start adding in different things into your regimen, and you may start with the best intention possible. But if you get bit by the dysmorphia and you try to compete again, you will be hard pressed to not be challenged to want to add more things into your routine or add things into your diet or your pill regimen or your, I guess, pin regimen. So there's no way to properly compete. If you want to compete, and I actually talked to a patient about this, why don't you just compete for yourself and just set a date and say, hey, November 1st, I'm gonna take photos. I'm gonna do this for myself. I'm gonna find a photographer. I'm gonna put on a bikini, whatever you want to do, or put on some trunks. I just want to take pictures just because I want to see what my body is capable of doing. When you do it from that vantage point, you're doing it in order to look healthy, right? Bodybuilders, physique, bikini, all of those, you don't look healthy, you look excessive. Okay, you look excessive. Now, I love a great physique. Don't get me wrong. When you have like paper thin abs, kudos to you. Kudos. I used to have veins that would come up the side of my stomach. It was disgustingly awesome. I loved it. However, it is excessive. It is not healthy at all. If we have to restrict and we have to do 4 hours of movement a day and we need to starve ourselves and we need to take all this stuff in order to achieve this goal, only to lose it within a month of having obtained it, it's not healthy. It was a diet. It was a fad. It was a massive stress to your body. So next time you guys are like, hey, I want to reach out and talk to you because I know that you've been in the industry. What do you think? Can you help me? I'm probably more than likely I'm going to turn you down on that. I don't have the time or the energy or the space for people to hurt themselves. I want people to reach their 100% God-given potential. I'm all for it. If you're like, hey, well, I just want to have like a low body fat, cool, go for it. But do it from a healthy standpoint. You can have a great looking flat stomach and eat, 100 grams or less of carbs a day, 60 to 100 grams of carbs. But are you also properly increasing your fats? Are you increasing proper proteins? Are you reducing inflammatory compounds? Are you reducing the inflammatory plant oils? You do all of those things, and your body will only keep the fat on it that it needs in order for you to survive. Okay? Fat is an adaptation. That's why a lot of us will put on an extra layer in the wintertime. It's because our body knows it's going to be colder. So instinctively, our bodies handle fat a little bit differently when it comes to the wintertime. It's incredibly normal for you to put on a little bit of weight come wintertime just to shed it when it comes spring and summer. type 2 diabetes was actually an epigenetic phenomenon that took place for people who lived in like really cold climates, Alaska. It was an adaptive thing that took place in order to allow for these people in super cold climates to put on a bunch of fat and keep it on them. And you wouldn't want to treat them and be like, hey, we need to regulate your blood sugar. No. You're going against the instinctive nature of the body. You're going against the innate intelligence which allows that person to survive in that climate. You wouldn't want somebody with 4% body fat going to Alaska and be like, good luck, here's a parka. He would freeze. They would die. There's no way that their body would be able to function in those climates. So, I don't care if someone's like, oh, it's just a mental thing. You just have to tell yourself you're warm. Bullshit. If you're out there and it's like negative 50 degrees, your body is stressed. It's going under. I don't care how in tune your mind is or who you'll say, oh, this guy could probably do it. I don't think so. I don't buy the BS. Anyways, that's motivational people. They tend to stress me out a little bit. So what was I even talking about? So when it comes to competing, when it comes to bodybuilding, do I have any regret doing those shows? No, I don't. I wish I would have done them a little bit differently. I wish I would have done them from a different mindset as well. First show I did was just for attention, really. Just for attention. Was going through a really hard time. Just wanted to feel special. And so I wanted to diet down, which is one of the dumbest things I could do during chiropractic school. I mean, the amount of stress in chiropractic school, and you throw starving yourself on top of it, I was a jerk. And then the selfishness of 4 hours a day, 5 hours a day in the gym, especially like now I've got a wife and kids. If I'm like, hey, hon, I'm going to be gone for 4 hours or 5 hours every single day just so I can compete for myself for something that doesn't really matter. Like, that's a dysfunctional relationship to me. And I don't care if she's like, oh yeah, go ahead and do it, hon. Read between the lines, guys. Like, no, not good. And if your spouse is like, yes, go do it. I'll cheer for you. Spend as much time as you need. You should probably start asking the question why your spouse wants you gone for 4 to 5 hours a day, because you must not have proper communication. But from a functional standpoint, is there an easy way, a healthy way, a clean way to diet? Not really. Just simplistically speaking, you should never eat the same thing every single day. Bodybuilding diet, that's it. You eat the same thing every day. You meal prep for an entire week. Rice, broccoli, fish, rice, broccoli, beef, rice, broccoli, chicken. Like, it's basically it. Brown rice, maybe a sweet potato here or there. The same thing every single day. So just from that fundamental standpoint, not healthy. Throw in the stress response, guys as well as girls, not healthy. Okay. Throw in the threat of the body dysmorphia. Pretty much bound to happen to anybody that competes. Okay, pretty much bound to happen. And then you throw in the pressure of performance enhancers on top of it. You could tell me when to stop here. We could have just stopped at the gut health issue. But if you want to look your best, be your best, but function your best. Health is 100% function of all of your organs functioning 100% of the time. Remember, if you want to diet down and you want to lose that body fat, figure out what's inflammatory that you're putting in on your diet. You don't have to reduce the calories. If you're eating 100 grams of, potato chips, carbs and potato chips a day, 100 grams, what is that? 100 times, it's about like 400 calories, right? 400 calories. So if you did 100 grams, you swap that out and you did that with some fat, you're looking at closer to like 900 calories, calories coming from your fat. Oh my gosh, my calories went up 900. Oh my God. Well, you swapped out garbage for sustenance, for good stuff. So start tweaking those things. Start seeing if you have room for improvement with that. And then you'll be surprised to see the weight start to fall off of you. And I mean, even there's tests you can run again with women. If you're trying to diet down, look at your gut health, make sure you're metabolizing your estrogen properly, make sure you're not stressing yourself out, causing any hormonal imbalances, leaving an excess of estrogen. Make sure that you're not skipping meals all day, every day. Otherwise, it's going to lead to a different type of insulin resistance because you're starving yourself out. Make sure you have proper sleep. I mean, there's studies that people will lose weight just from having better sleep because they're able to rest, recover, and then their insulin also is more balanced the next day so that they're not craving carbs. So just do an assessment, do an intake. People are like, do you count carbs? Do you count macros? No, I don't care. Do I do it for my patients? No, I don't usually. If somebody's like, hey, I want to track my calories, I'm like, go for it. That's up to you. Throw it in MyFitnessPal if you want to. Give yourself a gauge, and you can do it once a month. If you're like, hey, I think I've been eating the same thing, but I don't know. I haven't been able to lose weight as much as I have. And then you look and you're like, oh shoot, that food had 100 grams of carbs. Like, sorry, that was in one sitting. That's a lot. So look at those tweaks. And if you're still like, okay, I've done that. I've eliminated gluten, dairy, corn, soy. I've eliminated pops. I've eliminated, different stressors in my life and in my environment. And you drop down in weight and you're like, okay, I think I'm doing pretty good. And you hit a plateau. Reach out. Like, hey, I think I might need some additional testing. I've got this, that, and the other thing going on. I'm down here, but I want to be a little bit better. How do we do that? Functionally. We figured out your functional ranges, figured out what we need to do from my vantage point as well as from your vantage point. And we coach you on it. We make it super easy. I have 2 friends right now who are in the process of losing weight. One of which, you know who you are. You're going to be hearing this podcast, but I gave him simple tips. A guy's going to be able to lose weight a lot easier than a girl's going to be able to. Big thing is cutting their sugars down for guys. Work on sleep. Don't eat 3 hours prior to bedtime. Only drink water. Guys can intermittent fast if you want to. Girls, just be very careful. Intermittent fasting, maybe once every 2 or 3 days, you can try to. Put the cookie down. Now you know who you are. So anyways, thank you all for tuning into this podcast. It was a little bit all over the place here, but I feel like I had to say it because it's been a question that has come up like 2 or 3 times in the last month. So I figured, might be relevant to some people, might tick off some people. It's okay. I'm here for that. But if you have any advice for hey, I think I could do it, then shout out to me. Find me on Instagram and tell me how you would do it naturally. And I'd love to hear it. I'd love to. Okay. We'll talk soon.